This is Erica Merrill. I am the founder of Perfect Legal Video and very excited to invite attorney Michael Chastaine on the show today. We are going to be talking about an incredible award that you just won. Your firm just won the best criminal defense firm in Northern California. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. We're extremely proud of it, and it's really a testament to our team that everybody is pulled together and worked very hard over many years to establish that reputation, and we're very pleased to have been recognized this way.
Now, how long have you been in business?
So the Chastaine Law Office was opened January 1st of 2007, but I've been practicing law, criminal defense specifically, for over 34 years. So I got my bar card back in 1985.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've been doing this work longer than most of my clients have been alive, and it has been almost exclusively criminal defense for my entire career, starting off with the Public Defender's Office for 17 years down in San Jose, and then in private practice here in the Sacramento area since 2001.
Wow, that is a long time. First of all, what drew you to getting into law and then breaking off into criminal?
Well, that's not a particularly sexy decision. I went to college with the idea that I was going to be a reporter. That was really what drove me there. And so I was getting a political science degree. And at some point I decided being a reporter wasn't really what I was interested in doing. And I realized that the poli-sci degree wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I decided to go to law school without really knowing what that would mean. Fortunately for me, that was a very gratuitous decision because the law really has turned out to be my calling. In law school, I worked for a personal injury firm, basically for a couple years, and came to the realization that if I wanted to be effective in that arena, I needed to have trial experience. And so after making some inquiries, I found that the best way to get trial experience was going to be in the criminal realm as a public defender. And so I applied and got a job in Santa Clara County, and I never turned back from that. Once I got involved and realized that really was my calling, it was really what, not only was I good at it, but I really felt like I was helping people, and I continue to feel that way. I'm excited to go to work every day. So I found my niche.
That's amazing when that happens. I mean, you think about how many people just spend their whole lives doing the wrong thing, and then they finally find what they like, and it just like you never have to work a day in your life if you're doing what you love, is what they say. And I believe that, and I'm so happy that you found it. I mean, what are some of the challenges, though? I mean, I know you love it, so that you work through these challenges, but like, what are some of the challenges behind being a criminal defense attorney?
Well, here in California in particular, through the 90s and specifically, there was a real movement to just lock everybody up. 3 strikes came in, and there's just progressive legislation that increased the sentences. And that is, that's been really frustrating, and something that I fought very hard against. This idea that, we're going to make people safer by locking them in a cage, and it just has proven not to be true. The war on drugs not only was an abysmal failure, but really ruined a lot of lives. Fortunately, over the last 5 or 6 years, we're beginning to turn the tide back a little bit and recognize that addiction is a medical issue more than a criminal issue. And that's not to excuse, people breaking into your house and committing violent crime, but, people who are just getting high and using drugs, locking them in a cage doesn't make it better. It just locks them in a cage at our expense, at taxpayers' expense, and then we cut them loose. And previously, we just really haven't used the resources to treat the addiction, which is the key to getting them better. The vast majority of my clients, and I think this would be true for all criminal defense lawyers, the vast majority of our clients have either substance abuse or mental health issues. And treatment is really the key. Now, there has to be both a carrot and a stick. I get that. But if we spent more resources on treatment and less resources on just locking people in cages, I think as a community we'd be safer. I think we would all do better, and we'd have more productive people in our community. So that's been the hardest part for me, is just dealing with that constant frustration of this knee-jerk reaction to lock everybody up. And our firm takes a very holistic approach. When someone comes in the door, we want to first find out, is there a substance abuse issue? Is there a mental health issue that can actually be addressed? And when there is, then we want to get them to the resources that would allow them to begin on that path, whether it's sending them to AA or a rehab program, or getting involved with the right psychiatrist, or on the right medication, or just simply encouraging people to stay on their medication. And being a cheerleader for them. I mean, sometimes that's all they need, is someone just in their corner, really pulling for them. So, that's what we do here, and I'm just very pleased that we're starting to see a reversal of this really draconian trend that we had for a couple decades of just locking everybody up.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I know, for example, with sex crimes, people don't usually have that, if they get treatment, they don't usually commit the crime again. It's like less than 5%.
Yeah, it's been a real misnomer. For years, what the legislature kept saying is that, all people involved in sex crimes are going to recidivate and commit new crimes again. And that's just proven not to be true. That's really been a myth. Now, that's not to say that these aren't extremely serious crimes, and they have, profound impacts on the victims and their families. So, I don't want to downplay that. But this kind of idea of one size fits all, everybody needs to be locked in a cage, also doesn't work. So, especially when you're dealing with what the most common situation of a sex crime, which is, some sort of interfamilial molestation, tearing that family completely apart is not always the right answer. Now, sometimes it is. Every case has got to be looked at on its own merits, but, we have a lot of laws that just send people to prison forever, and it's unnecessary in my view, and it's not needed for the safety of the community in all cases. So, we need to have more flexibility instead of all of these mandatory sentences that we still have. It's one of the last areas of law that's going to be difficult to get the legislation to really move off of. Although they did make some big changes recently on the registration component. In California now, instead of being lifetime registration for virtually everything, now we have a tiered system that goes into effect next year. finally, it's been long overdue. So there has been some slow movement in that regard, and I think that that'll be helpful for a lot of people.
I think that's great. I mean, I didn't mean to make this into a sex crime talk, but it just was an example of like one of the things where, you know, really getting therapy does help, and they don't usually repeat. Now, I know it may not be exactly that low with drugs and some other crimes, depending on, it's great that you are looking at more of a, you know, case by case basis. It really is. It depends on the person and the situation. And you're right, some of those laws have just been there for so long, and they don't really take into account what we're doing today and the new technology as far as therapy and getting people better, even medically. There's a lot of things that can be done. And I don't know if you have this stat, but how expensive is it per year to house a criminal?
It's extremely expensive. I don't have a number. We could look it up pretty quickly, but it's in excess of $25,000 a year per per inmate on a prison in a prison setting, and you just ask yourself, well, even half of that, what difference could you make in someone's lives if we gave them education, or got them in college, or gave them some hope? I mean, a lot of crime is substance abuse related, but also that people don't see any other options. Their future just looks so grim that they just kind of give up, and that's part of what we have to change. And the other thing that really impacts people in California that a lot of people don't realize is fines. DMV, if you get a speeding ticket, you're looking at fines and in the neighborhood of $400 to $500, and a lot of people just can't afford that. So the result is their license gets suspended, and now they're driving around with a suspended license, which isn't in anybody's to benefit, and then they get arrested for that, and then that carries with it more fines and a longer suspension, and it just is this kind of spiral. It's not a huge part of our practice, but it is part of our practice when people come in and they have a suspended license, trying to unwind all of that. And the unfortunate truth is a lot of times it takes money to do that, and we're talking about people who don't have the resources. So we really do need to look at this from a different perspective. But it's a complicated problem. There's no question about it.
So what I really love that you've talked about so far in some of the differences in how you stand out from other law firms and how you came to win this award. And already I can see, and I'm sure that if I spoke with some of your clients, you guys truly care about your clients, and you want to see them do well, and you want to see them get better, and you don't want to see them as repeat customers.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the difference, I think. And I'd love to hear about, a little bit more of the differences that really help you stand apart from the rest of the criminal attorneys out there.
Well, thanks for asking that question. So, it really starts with our team, and the initial contact. I mean, we have a great staff who actually do care about what happens to people, and they want to be supportive and non-judgmental, and really welcoming. So when I understand that when somebody calls a lawyer, it's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to call a lawyer. It's like calling your dentist. Nobody wants to call your dentist, right? Because it usually means you have a cavity. I mean, nobody's calling us just to chit chat. They're calling us because they have a a problem, they've been arrested, or they think they're going to be arrested, or they're being investigated, and they're pretty terrified about it. So we want to be as open and welcoming as possible, and make people feel comfortable that, look, this is your opportunity to come in, get a free consultation, find out what's going on. Do you really have a criminal problem or not? I mean, I do get people who come through the door who are kind of freaked out and very concerned. And after we analyze it, it's like, no, you really don't, have a criminal problem. I mean, there are scams out there. I got a call the other day telling me that I was being investigated for drug trafficking. And I was supposed to go down to the sheriff's department and turn myself in. And I'm like, what are you, crazy? That's not the way it works, right? Some guy doesn't call me and say, oh, you need to go down to the sheriff's department. I mean, if there truly is a warrant, they're going to come and get me. There's no warrant. So I don't know what the scam was, but it clearly was. And we see that from time to time. I don't know, people apparently don't have anything better to do. So, people do come into our office, and we send them on their way saying, look, you don't have a problem, but if you do, keep my card in your wallet. Other people, they've been arrested for a DUI. They've clearly been arrested. They have a court date, and we know that they do. And so we want to start talking to them about, all right, what are your options? What are the things that you can do proactively? We sit down, and one of the first things we ask them is, what are your big concerns? What are you worried about? And a lot of times what it comes down to is, let's say on a drunk driving case, they're worried about losing their driver's license. That's kind of the number one concern. And then you start asking, well, what would happen if you lost your license? Oh, well, I couldn't get to work. Yeah, and what would happen then? Well, I'd lose my job. Okay, and then what would happen then? Well, I'd lose my house. So what you really get down to is what they're really worried about is they're worried about losing their house, or they're worried about not being able to take their kids to school, or they're worried about being able to, do whatever other things. And so once we know exactly what they're concerned about, then we can actually address that in a laser focus. All right, the number one thing here is we got to make sure you don't lose your driver's license. Great. So let's figure out how we avoid that. Fortunately in California, the law has changed recently, and so there are things that we can do to avoid an actual suspension of a license. Sometimes the big concern is, hey, I don't want to go to jail, or I need to figure out how to deal with bail, or I need to minimize the consequences. So, knowing what they are concerned about will really allow us to laser focus on their case. And I think a lot of people really appreciate that it's not one size fits all by any stretch of the imagination. Every case is unique, every person is unique, and we want to address their individual concerns. And we do that from the very first phone call, but by asking the question, what are you worried about? What is it that you need to make sure that gets taken care of? And, back when people used to get actually had license suspensions, we would go as far as look at the bus schedule with it. Go, all right, you need to get to work for 30 days because you have a hard suspension. How are we going to get you there? And actually, alleviate that problem or concern for them, to let them know that there are options. And so that's our big. I think that's what distinguishes us is we take the time to ask the questions so that we know what they really need, and it enables us to, service people, service their cases in a way that a lot of firms just don't take the time to do.
Well, I think that's amazing, because I think you're right. A lot of law firms they have you come in the door and they kind of act like they're McDonald's of law firms, and they've got a certain way that they're going to do it, and they've got they miss things because of that. They miss some of the really important concerns of the client, and perhaps had they asked the questions, they could prioritize that a little differently so that they can make sure that client's needs get met. And I think it's fantastic that you ask all of those questions to make sure that you can, you can tweak the process to make sure that things are going to work out for the client in the best way possible.
Yeah, I would. Yes, I think that that's probably the number one thing for us. But there's also another component, and that is actually running a financially stable law firm. And while most people who are calling probably aren't giving that a lot of thought, recognizing that we're not worried about paying the rent because we're on a financially stable platform, means that we don't have to take every case that walks through the door. We can limit the number of cases that we deal with, which means every client, we always have capacity to address clients' concerns and issues. That's really important. And it's, for us, it's not about the money. Yes, we need to make a profit. We all need to get paid. But it is about actually providing the services, and we have the resources to actually provide those services for clients, as opposed to a lot of these bargain basement firms that will charge a very nominal fee, but they just won't be able to provide the services. You're not going to get a filet mignon at McDonald's, right? Because that's not what they do. Everything is, you get Big Macs. That's what you can get. Not everybody wants a Big Mac. And sometimes, we have the ability to do everything from the Big Mac to the filet mignon, and everything in between, to make sure that the people get what they actually need, as opposed to just trying to, shove every square peg into a round hole.
I think that's fantastic. And I think that's the best way to do business. And, the part about being financially stable, that does make a big difference, because now you can focus on the cases that that you can make a difference in, instead of just always working like you're putting out fires and spending too much time on something that, really isn't going to work out, and it doesn't pay that much.
Right. Well, it allows us to have the staff that's necessary for that as well. And that's really important. I mean, we have a great staff, and we have enough people. One of the biggest complaint to the state bar is the inability to communicate with your lawyer. And for those folks who have, are solos, who have, they're all by themselves, or they just have a very minimal staff, it can be very difficult to get in touch with your client, or the client to get in touch with you, because you're not available. We never have that problem, because we have staff that will take your call, make sure that the information gets to the right person, and it gets responded. And we also have technology that works for us. Every client has their own client portal, and so that means they have basically a direct connection to their attorney or the paralegal, depending on the appropriate person, to communicate, upload documents, download documents, get reminders for court dates, or other tasks that need to be done. So that the ability to communicate with our office through both technology and just regular old phone calls is greatly enhanced, and that alleviates probably 99% of those concerns.
Yeah, because when you've got a criminal case, you need something answered. You want it answered right away. You don't want to have to worry about a bunch of sleepless nights and not able to get in touch with the people that can answer your questions, and that's fantastic.
And that's especially true right now, right? We're going through this coronavirus issue. There's a great deal of uncertainty. There's a lot of things that we just don't know. I mean, we know courts are shutting down, but they're not completely shut down. We still have some court dates, but does the client really need to show up? There's a lot of uncertainty. It's changing on a daily basis. Here in California, we're essentially on lockdown. So we are an essential service because we do, we're part of the criminal justice system. So our office is open. I'm sitting in my office today, but we have a minimal staff. Most everybody's working online. We have the technology that allows that to happen, but we can still field phone calls, emails and texts and everything else. And it's completely understandable. People are like, well, do I need to show up to court? What should I be doing? What's going on? And to the extent that we can answer those questions, we will. In all honesty, there's a lot of questions we don't know the answer to. I tell a lot of people, I said, well, check with me tomorrow, because tomorrow it'll be different. It's Friday afternoon, just past noon here in California. Monday will probably be very different than it is today.
Yeah, it's been changing really quickly. And I know that, there's a lot of courts that are closed. You can get some virtual meetings. Have they done anything virtually for your clients yet, or is that hasn't come up?
So the federal courts are trying to work in that direction. They have a much smaller caseload compared to the state courts, but that it's not in effect yet. But there's a lot of talk about that. The state courts, they don't. Frankly, we don't know. They're just continuing out of custody and misdemeanor cases basically across the board. But we still have court appearances. We have a court appearance on Monday that got continued from last week. And the client keeps asking, do I need to show? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen on Monday. So the answer right now is yes, but that may change on Monday. This is a time where having the ability to communicate with your lawyer is so critical. And on the flip side of that is that everyone has to be flexible to the extent of, we may not know the answers. All we can do is give you the best information that we have right now. I would like to think that within the next 2 weeks, we'll have a pretty clear game plan certainly through April, and maybe into May, what's going to happen. It just kind of depends on what happens with the virus, and if the curve flattens out, we'll have a better idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are accused of a crime right now, what are some of the things that you should be aware of? Well,
so it's important to understand that they're still arresting people. Okay, so it's not a
get out of jail free card.
Yeah. Now, people being arrested and being released, probably more people. I mean, we have this really weird situation here in California where we don't really know what's going on with bail. They're trying to get rid of it. So I would say, on nonviolent crimes where someone who, is charged with a misdemeanor or a nonviolent felony, they're probably going to get released for the time being with a court date. Folks with more serious crimes and serious felonies, they probably are not going to get released. And so those court appearances are still going to have to occur. If you are arrested, it is still really important to contact and get representation. Even if you're arrested on something today and your court appearance isn't until, say, May or June, that doesn't mean that there's not things that can be done. So sometimes there is some real value in going to the scene of the incident. And if we wait, months, the scene will change and it won't give us any good information. So, I used to remember back in the day watching Perry Mason, and he always showed up at the crime scene when the body was still there, and I was always like, how did he even know? That's TV, but the ability to go to the scene, especially if it's a serious crime, sooner rather than later can really make a difference. Actually knowing what the place is like at that time, what the lighting is, all of those things can be pretty important. So I would really encourage people, if you get arrested or if you believe you're being investigated, don't wait. Just because, you think, oh, nothing's going to happen for a few months. Now is the time to actually start preparing your defense.
So take pictures, write down exactly what happened, the sequence of events as you remember them as soon as you can. I mean, are those some of the things that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to do one size fits all. I would say you need to consult with an attorney and then find out what the next step is. I mean, taking pictures is great, but if you're going down someplace and taking pictures that are going to get you in trouble, or inappropriate, or I mean, I can just imagine ways that shouldn't happen, or you take pictures that just aren't useful. I mean, that's what we have investigators for, so that the right information gets gathered. And sometimes it's not just about pictures, it's just understanding the space. So, before you really do anything, yes, you should record, write down what happened and record your memory. That is helpful for your lawyer, but you really should be consulting with someone at your earliest possible opportunity, and recognize, we offer free consultations. So, you can get 30 to 60 minutes of free time to figure out what do you need and what the best, the best route to go, so you can make an intelligent decision about how you should move forward.
So the number one thing is meet with an attorney, meet with your office if you are in Northern California. You have been voted the best, so that is really great. And then you can tell them from your consultation what some of the best options would be and the best next steps, and tell them honestly. And I think that's what makes you stand out as well, because it's really about honesty. Some of these attorneys will promise you the moon and the stars, and it may not be accurate.
Well, we actually, as part of our package, we give people, I can't give people written guarantees of the outcome of the case. There's just way too many moving parts, and the bar, says you can't do that. But what I can do is I can give people written promises. And one of the written promises that I give people, and we hand them, a document that says our written promises, is that I'm not going to make you a promise that I can't keep. So I'm not going to promise you the stars and the moon when that's a completely unrealistic thing. We're going to give you our best assessment, and tell you what we think the odds of those outcomes are. But we are not going to make you promises that we can't keep. What we can promise you is that we're going to do the very best we can. We're going to stay in communication with you. We're going to give you our best experience, and tell you what our honest assessment of things are. And sometimes it's not good news, but people need to know, okay, what is likely to happen, and what are their best options. I would also just want to point out, because we do have the technology, you don't actually have to come in for a consult right now. We can do this on Zoom, like we're doing this right now. We can do it on Skype, we can do it on Zoom, we can do it on FaceTime for that matter. We can set up a consultation where we are actually eyeball to eyeball and chit-chatting, without you coming into the office. And we are technologically set up so we can virtually do everything right now, without having somebody break the rules of traveling. Now, seeing your lawyer is an essential process. So I don't think anyone's going to get in trouble for coming and seeing a lawyer. But if you're uncomfortable with, being out in public right now, and for good reasons, or you're sick, or you have symptomology, we don't want you coming into the office. But that doesn't mean that you don't need information. So you can call us, and we can easily set you up on a Zoom or a Skype or FaceTime consultation, just like we're doing this right now, and chat with you, share information with you, and email you stuff. I mean, we do it every day.
I mean, I am personally almost as far away from you as I can be, because I'm in Boston,
Right.
or in California, and we're having a very meaningful conversation, and we're able to share that. I do want to circle back to one thing that you mentioned when you were talking about signing a promise that you're not going to promise them something that you can't deliver. And I just think that that's so important to point out, because I haven't heard of that before. Maybe it's out there, but I think that is fantastic. And I think the other reason that you're able to really do that is that you are in the courts every single day. And not only do you know what happens in your cases, and you've seen this over and over again, but you sit around waiting and watching other people's trials as well. So, I mean, and you're educated, and you keep up on the newest trends in law. So they have all of that knowledge when they come to your office. And not only you, but you have other people that work in the office that are also familiar and collecting data and imparting that knowledge to your clients so that they can make the best decision. Like you said, it's not always good. It's not always what they want, but you know that if X happens, sometimes, you know, Y is what you come out with, and you're going to try to position it so that you get a better outcome, but you know, from your experience, and you can really tell somebody, you know.
Right. Well, you can't make good decisions if you don't have good information. You know, one of the things that we do, and I just grabbing it, is, you know, we have continuing education. I mean, we go to seminars on a regular basis, but probably one of the most important things is we read the daily journal. I read it every day, and in the daily journal are what are called advance sheets. This is the law as of today. I mean, this very minute. And so, you know, we review that every day, and we talk about it among our team. And so, you know, there's nothing more powerful than going, well, Judge, the law just changed yesterday, and nobody else in the courtroom knew about it but us. And, you know, years ago, you know, before we had before we really had the internet, you know, when I first started practicing, I remember being incredibly impressed by a lawyer who walked in the door and pulled out an advance sheet and said, Judge, you know, yesterday the Court of Appeal just ruled, you know, right on point to the issue that we're talking about. And he took a case that he was clearly going to lose, and he won. And so we try to be cutting edge, to know what is going on, not only in our courtrooms, but, you know, across the state and across the country. Where is the law? And that's one of the reasons why, you know, we only do criminal defense. A lot of firms do criminal defense and personal injury and wills and trusts and bankruptcy. They do multiple areas. And while there's nothing wrong with that in particular, it is really challenging to be laser focused and stay up on all areas of the law. And so I made a decision, and I've done that. You know, I've done personal injury work, and I've done other kinds of things. I've dibbled and dabbled in those sorts of things. But I made the decision, you know, probably 5 years ago, that we would only do criminal defense exclusively, and to the exclusion of everything else. And that has really allowed us to be super focused on the cases and the law that really impact our clients. And, you know, I think that makes a big difference. And so that's why I feel comfortable that I can make people promises. I can make a written promise that I'm not going to offer you something that I can't deliver on, because I know exactly what the game, you know, the playing field looks like, and where things stand.
I think that's fantastic. And so I just wanted to say, like, before we go, I know we've covered a lot today, and people are concerned about how the coronavirus is going to affect the legal system. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, it's really kind of changing day to day.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, some of the adverse effects are going to be that, cases are getting put off and put off and put off, and you know, people aren't able to work maybe, or there's a lot of different things that could affect them individually depending on what's happening in the case.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Well, yeah, one thing that it occurs to me is we know that a lot of people are losing their jobs right now. And, if you're in the service industry, if you work in a bar or a restaurant, bowling alley, lots of positions, are going away, at least for the time being. My recommendation for folks is to, if you have already hired a lawyer and you're on some sort of payment plan, to talk to them and, work with them. I think most lawyers, and certainly we will, work with people. We want to continue the representation. We want to continue to help them. We don't want to abandon clients. But what we need as a business is some assurance that you have a plan. And the client needs some assurance that we are going to stand in their corner through this time. And so, as I said earlier, the biggest complaint to the state bar is a failure to communicate with your attorney. Or put a different way, your attorney's failure to communicate with you. But it is a two-way street. If you are having financial issues and that is impacting your ability to pay, legal agreements. I mean, every client that we have has a contract and a payment plan. If there is a payment plan, an agreement on how that's going to work. If your situation has changed, you need to talk to us. We may not be reaching out to you going, hey, how's your employment situation? If your employment situation has changed, you should talk to us, and we'll work with you to make things happen. Because cases are going to be extended out, it may mean that there's not a lot of work that needs to be done between now and then, or we can get a lot of things done, but there will be wait and see periods. And that gives people an opportunity to figure out, all right, how are we going to, get through this process? We're all in it together. And that's the main thing that we got to recognize, is that, we are on our client's team. We are there to help them. We want to get them through the other side. And this is a time to really have an open dialogue. The second thing is that if you are involved in some sort of treatment, you're going to AA or those kinds of things, you're dealing with substance abuse issues, this is not the time to stop. This is the time to really, increase your meetings. They may have to be virtual meetings, but this is a time where depression can really set in. And so people need to, keep their support systems, the telephone, FaceTime, Skype, Zoom. There's lots of ways that you can have face-to-face communications with people to be, to fight off the depression that could come. And what follows depression often is falling back into the substance abuse, falling back into the drinking. You can still buy booze. Liquor stores are still open. Safeway's still selling vodka. So, you put yourself at risk. You're sitting at home without much to do. This is the time to really focus on yourself and don't let those things go. And then I think the third thing is, to the extent that you can keep your routine, keep your routine. I talked about that as my team. Even though a lot of people are working at home, the men are still wearing ties. While you're working, keep your uniform on, keep your routine, try not to change things too much. This will pass. Things may be different on the other side, but it will pass. So To the extent that you can maintain your routine as much as possible, I encourage people to really do that.
I think that that is excellent advice. And I mean, I know that you are a man of many hobbies and you love nature and, you get out there, and I'm sure that, those kinds of things, trying to keep a little bit of normalcy, including your daily schedule at work, but also, making sure you get some fresh air and just keep a positive outlook. It's so easy to sit there and watch report after report, negative thing, and then your positive outlook just slowly starts to, you don't even realize it. And it's important to be informed, but do you need to watch it 24/7?
Yep. No, I agree. I think, people would be would benefit from turning off the news. Stay informed, check out your local news or whatever, but 24/7 of Fox, 24/7 of MSNBC, 24/7 of all that, it will just do nothing but bum you out. And the other thing that I think is important to keep in mind is that this game that we're playing, this whole thing that we're doing, is really between your ears, right? Your attitude and how you approach this is going to really dictate how you come out of it. As tough as things are right now, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, and the people that can stay flexible and keep their minds open and not, be super down in the dumps, they're going to come out of this okay. So, it's really important to keep a positive attitude and keep your eyes open for the opportunities that are going to spring. New industries are going to jump up. And others are going to go by the way of the carburetor, and you need to know the difference between those.
Absolutely. And I think it's all really great advice, and you and the people that work at your law office are very positive and informative and just top shelf. So
well, thank you.
Is that a good thing to say or a bad thing to say?
That is a good thing to say. We like to be top shelf, you bet.
Top shelf refers to alcohol. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, I've never been opposed to a nice, a good adult beverage from time to time. That's not the.
That's not the problem.
That's not the problem. No.
Well, I really appreciate your coming on here today, and
thank you for having us.
You're welcome. I'm so congratulations. It's super exciting news. It sounds like they really did pick the right law firm for the award, and for lots and lots of great reasons. And the advice that you're giving to the people that have a lot of anxiety, maybe they've been accused of a crime. The best thing to do is just stay positive, like you were saying. Keep your normalcy as much as you can, and call your attorney right away and find out what your options are. And don't worry about it, because they've got a plan. They've done this over and over again, and they continue to do it, and they will keep you informed. They've got a team that's ready to go, and you couldn't be in better hands than with the Chastaine Law Firm. So thank you so much for coming on today.
And one last reminder, just we do have books on virtually, on DUIs, on general criminal stuff, on sex offenses. If you need information, you can just go onto our website at chastainelaw.net or chastainelaw.com, either one, and request a book, and we'd be more than happy to send it out to you.
Absolutely. Those books are very informative and a good 10,000-foot overview, but don't forget, every situation is unique and different, and the best thing to do is to pick up the phone and give them a call. And Absolutely. The information is on the post here, and when we edit this interview and we put it out all over social media, you'll have the information on how to contact them as well.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.